Let's talk about the big side of the conference, Kyle, the Northwest.
All right, let's do it. Let's start off with Amboy. Last year they were 2-7. They went 1-5 in the Three Rivers Rock Conference, which, as we all know, the Three Rivers is a much stronger conference. More times than not, being that it covers 1 through 3A schools primarily. This year's team, though, they're going to be young. It's definitely going to be a junior-dominated team. I expect them to be a tough team, though. Most teams coming out of the Three Rivers Conference are going to be tough, and they're going to run right at you, and they're going to keep coming. And I see that with the Clippers. My question is how are the Clippers going to adjust to the NUIC? You got games like they lost last year to Orion in a big fashion where Lena Winslow played Orion nuts and bolts to the end of the game. Amboy's going to have some questions that are going to need to be answered to compete on the big side of the conference.
Yes, but I think they'll be able to do that. You know, like you said, coming from a power conference, Amboy should fit right at home. You know, Amboy should be looking at this schedule thinking, you know, this is something we can work with. You know, not to degrade any of the teams in the Northwest because, you know, we've seen countless state championships, 1A and 2A, come out of the Northwest. But, you know, Amboy is looking at this, you know, okay, like you said, you know, they had a tough time with Orion, you know, Lena Winslow played Orion tough. But looking at the rest of these teams, I mean, Amboy should be able to fit right in. You know, you're taking the spot of South Beloit, you know. You're looking at all these other schools and, you know, everybody wanted more competition, but you know, Amboy's coming in and takes South Beloit. You know, that's one less game that's a gimme on the schedule. Let's be honest.
Right, absolutely. The only thing I have with Amboy though is you look at their schedule. Their first 4 weeks, they're going up against playoff teams.
Very much
they're
so.
going up against Galena, Dakota, West Carroll, and Forston. Granted, their game with West Carroll, that kind of could be a toss-up there. That could be the game that matters the most too to determine who's going to make the playoffs. But just some things to look out for. Key player I have to watch for Amboy is going to be middle linebacker Cole Stewart. Amboy runs a 5-3 defense, and Cole's going to have to be the catalyst in the middle of that defense to be able to plug the gaps and stop the run, especially in the NUIC Northwest, which we all know is a run-dominated conference. And like Dakota, that 5-3 defense is very fast, as Dakota proved last year.
And that's something, you know, a lot of the schools in the conference don't see other than Dakota, you know. So I think Amboy could really work with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I could definitely be a strong suit for them in shutting down some of these guys with quick backs that are just trying to get to the outside and take it to the house. Another key note for Amboy too is they run an offense that's not very well seen in our conference. They run an inverted wishbone primarily, so that's going to be interesting to see as well, to see how that's going to open up their run game, open up different holes, and what options they're going to have available in that scheme.
While we're in the Northwest, let's take our trip north to Dakota.
All right, Dakota last year was 7-3, and they were 6-2 in the Northwest Conference. They lost in the first round to Forston 8-0. They did lose quite a few key players off of last year's team, but they have some skilled position players back. The only question I have is how is the offensive and defensive lines going to adjust with only one returning starter?
You know, that's going to be real crucial for Dakota. How far they're going to make it, you know, whether they get to the playoffs or how far they go in the playoffs is going to be solely on their line play. You know, we say that about a lot of teams, but it's never more truer than it is with Dakota. I mean, the line's going to be key, but, you know, you move to the defensive side of the ball, like you said, they will lose a lot of players. Miguel Ugaldi, Greg Krulis, Jared Packer, just to name 3 of them. You know, that's 3/4 of your linebacking crew right there. Now, that's the case, but we're also talking about return starter and all-state linebacker Andrew Winger.
Right, absolutely. And, I mean, as far as key players, in my opinion, Andrew Winger is the heart and soul of the team. He was last year as a junior. He definitely needs to be this year. He was honorable mention all-state. He needs to be the vocal leader of this team to get them going forward right out of the gates. Next up are the Warriors of East Dubuque. Shane, last year they went 3-6. They were 2-6 in the Northwest. Keep in mind, this was their first year in the Northwest Conference after they changed conferences out of the Upstate, flipping over schedules with Durand. Going into this year, I think the Warriors seem to be ready for a new season, but they're going to need to come out of the gates ready to play, because you look at their first 2 wins of the year against Orangeville and Pecatonica, they only won those 2 games by a combined 20 points.
Yeah, and, for East Dubuque, it's going to be all about finishing games. You hope, you look at the schedule, you got Dakota, Galena, Lena Winslow, just 3 of them right there. You hope you can get these teams into a position where late in the game you can possibly win a few. And also beating teams you should. We'll get into that a little later, but it's all about starting strong and finishing. You get down by a score or whatever the case may be, you got to keep going forward.
Right.
You can't fold up and head home.
Right, exactly. I agree. In my opinion, their keys to success are they need to be hungry and they need to not quit. Last year, watching them play, you saw a lot of times where they would get down by a score or 2 and immediately they were hanging their heads and you knew the game was over at that time. That mentality cannot happen this year for the Warriors to be successful.
Next on the schedule is the home of the 2014 Class 2A state champion, Eastland Pearl City Wildcats.
Yeah, absolutely. Last year they had a down year coming off that unbelievable 14-0 season in 2014. We knew it was coming. Lack of players, lack of size. Last year they went 2-7 and they were 2-6 in the Northwest Conference. Looking forward to this year, the Cats are definitely going to look to rebound after missing the playoffs for the first time since 1999. That's one awesome run right there. Only thing is that they're going to be a very young team. You could see anywhere from 5 to 6 sophomores starting on both sides of the ball this year. With the lack of size, how do you think they're going to compete on the big side of the conference?
Well, and something that not a lot of people are going to necessarily see improvement record-wise. If you don't recall, towards the end of the year, last year, EPC had, they gave Dakota a game to begin with. As the season progressed, they were playing better. You got to take that foundation and keep building up. EPC might not see an improvement with the record, but I guarantee by the end of this year, they'll be playing better football. EPC, it might be hard for them, just like Dakota was a few years ago, to go through these, but, EPC's got a lot of talent coming. They're going to be fine. It's all about building forward and just getting to the next step so you can keep on progressing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you pointed out, that was one thing that really impressed me last year with the Wildcats was the way that they kept fighting. Even when they were down, you could still hear them hitting, and they were going hard. And that's definitely how you build a winning program. As you can see, they've been a winning program for many, many years. A key player that you really need to watch out for is going to be their stud, Brighton Haverland. He needs to lead this team both offensively and defensively, and he needs to be impactful on every play. You go back and watch some game film of him, specifically against Lena Winslow. Lena Winslow didn't run at his side very often, and there was a reason why for that.
Understandably so.
He gave up on the backside plays that ran away from him. He needs to finish every play. If he does that, the younger kids are going to follow that direction, and these guys can go anywhere but up. And you definitely know that they could potentially become a playoff team sooner than expected, too. All right, we had the 2A 2014 state champs. Let's talk about the 1A 2014 state champs, the Forest Cardinals. Last year, they went 8-3 overall. They were 6-2 in the Northwest Conference. They did end up losing to a juggernaut there in Stark County in the second round, going down 42-16. Looking forward to this year, this team is loaded. They nearly have everyone returning this year. The Cards are definitely the early favorites to win the conference in the Northwest. The only question is, how are they going to handle having that target on their backs?
And for me, it goes back, like you said, 2014. These kids were freshmen and sophomores during this time when Forest won their state championship. They've been there, they've done that, so to speak. For Forest, we know the talent's there. Diddick's one heck of a coach.
Yes,
he'll
absolutely.
He'll have them ready to play. For me, it's just Forest showing up and taking care of business. I mean, it really doesn't get any simpler than that as far as I'm concerned. You know, you embrace the target. You want that on your back.
Yeah, I agree. And as far as showing up, they're going to have to show up early. Weeks 2 and 3, they have Galena and Dakota back to back. They're going to have to come out ready to go right off the gates on that one. Key player to watch, in my opinion, is going to be Matt Akins. Granted, Forston's got a lot of returning starters coming back, but this kid, being your fullback and linebacker, he's stout, he's big, he hits hard, he fills the gaps, and when you need them small yardage situations, he's the guy you go to. Next up, we have perennial power, the Galena Pirates. Last year, Galena was 7-3, and they went 6-2 in the Northwest Conference before they end up losing in the first round to Stockton, 34-2, in a game that many saw should have went the other way. Looking forward to this season. My question is, will the Pirates right the ship that they sunk last year?
Well, we certainly hope so. You know, you look back at last year, you know, some unfortunate things may or may not have transpired. You know, you go to Dakota and you beat a very good Dakota team, and then, you know, you're going in the right direction to the playoffs, and you draw a team in Stockton that many think you should have beat. For me this year, it's about Galena putting it together and staying on course. You know, start to finish, just finishing games. You know, as we move forward, it's not any big secret that Galena is one of those teams and one of those schools that always seems to be at the top when it matters the most.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at their playoff performances the last 31 seasons. They've been there 28 times. They've won 3 state titles, runner-up. They've had numerous quarterfinal and semifinal appearances. They need to come out and stay focused on their goals. They're going to have 3 tests right out of the gates in their first 4 games. You look at Amboy, Forston, and Lena Winslow being those 3 teams that they got to come out and play in them first 4 weeks. They're going to know who they are coming out of the gates early on.
And another thing, you know, we mentioned this is a tough schedule to begin with, and the thing for Galena is to keep building on that. You know, you might look at the schedule and think, oh, we're going here, going there. We should mark that up as a win. You know, you want to be playing your best game when you end on the schedule at Dakota or home against Dakota. You know, that's when you want to be playing your best ball.
Yeah, absolutely. The end of October, going in that first week of playoffs is when you definitely need to be playing. Key player for Galena is going to be, in my opinion, Dalton Bauer, linebacker, fullback for the Pirates. He needs to be the guy that everybody follows. He's a fighter. He's come back from some tough situations. He's fast. He's big. He's strong. He gets the tough yards when you need him. He can get downfield when you need him on the pass play. And he makes very little mistakes both offensively and defensively.
While we're talking about tough teams, let's head on over to Lena Winslow.
Yeah, let's look at the Panthers. Last year they were 10-1. They were undefeated in the Northwest Division, going 8-0 last year. However, that run got kind of upset there in the second round when they lost to Orion 14-7, which many thought that could have easily been a quarter or semifinal matchup there. Looking forward, however, Panthers are looking for their 18th consecutive playoff appearance. But their question that I have is, do they need to be a little bit more two-dimensional, not having that prototypical fullback that you're used to seeing out of the Lena Winslow Panthers?
Yes and no. I mean, I think that is key, but also another key for me is keeping Valentine on the field. You know, last year he missed a lot of time with ankle injury. He's going to be their go-to guy in the backfield. You know, Lena Winslow has built a strong tradition. You know, I don't see anything derailing them from making another good postseason run as we move forward in the season.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the thing with Coach Arend. I mean, year after year after year, I mean, he's never had a losing record in his time at Lena, and every year he makes them adjustments, whether it be mid-game adjustments or mid-season adjustments that propels them into such good long playoff runs. Speaking of Ravion Valentine, too, he's my player to watch for this year. He's a junior speedster. He needs to be more powerful, however. Keeping in mind that they don't have that fullback, he's going to have to be able to run through the center of the line. Where last year, especially against Orion, you could see where they just shut him down completely, and his speed was no element in that game.
And I think that was a huge key that Lee Win was banking on. Valentine hadn't seen a lot of playing time. This was going to be their weapon moving forward, and when Oregon shut that down, it seemed like that pretty much took care of the Lee Win offense.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, and Oregon definitely took care of that on them. But hopefully Lena Winslow is definitely looking forward to this season. A lot of returners over there, as always. They always seem to reload.
Now let's head east along the banks of the Pecatonica River to Pecatonica High School.
All right, let's talk about them Indians over there. Last year they went 2-7. They were 2-6 in the Northwest Division. Not much to say on last year. They had a relatively mediocre year last year, to say the least. But looking forward, they've been building. You look at their record the past 3 seasons, ever since 2013, and every year they keep improving, and they need to keep doing that this year. They need to come out, they need to be able to trust the coaches, and they need to stick to assignment football. They have made small improvements every year, like I said, so as long as they can keep moving forward, they're going to be all right.
And I think that's key to Peck. We're talking about this with a lot of teams. Keep building. We're talking about a team now that wasn't even a team a few years ago, or a team that had to call it quits at halftime because EPC was taking it to them. We're talking about a team that beat EPC last year.
Right.
That's a program win.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're a Pecatonica player, you're looking forward to playing EPC again. Can we do this again? Not only EPC, but hey, you think maybe we could get Dakota? I mean, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. You get a critical win like that over EPC, you can definitely build onto that. Going into this year, they need to look in that same mentality. They need to come in. They open up at home against East Dubuque, and they need to be like, okay, this is our game. This is our home. Needs to be us. Speaking of which, the key player that I feel is one to look out for is going to be Brad Parks. He needs to be able to lead this team. He's a strong kid. He plays really good defense as well, and he's going to have to shore up that middle linebacker spot to shut down the run game. From the banks of the Pecatonica to the banks of the Mississippi, we're heading over to Savannah with West Carroll Thunder. Last year, West Carroll went 5-5, found their way into the playoffs. They were 4-4 in the Northwest Division. They ran into a buzzsaw there in the first round in Downs Tri-Valley. Lost to them in the first round, 22-0, which was very good. Speaking of how Downs Tri-Valley took care of Auburn in that state championship game. However, looking forward to this year, my question is will the Thunder be able to capitalize under second-year head coach Matt Lightson? And with quite a few returners back, they look to be a very good passing offense.
Which, that can cause some problems. We've seen in the past Aquin has had great success passing the ball. Dakota hasn't always been a pass defense team. A lot of these schools in the Northwest aren't used to seeing. We're used to seeing power run games. That can work out for West Carroll. For me, West Carroll is all about getting that start. And, they're going to have a tough draw at Dakota, but you don't know what can happen. You say, can we build on last year's success under first-year coach? And, I don't see a reason why we can't.
Right.
Like you said, they went to Tri-Valley. Conditions were bad. It is what it is, but, they played them tough. I mean, you're talking the 2A state championship team, 22-0. That's nothing to be down about. West Carroll, moving forward, I like them. This could be a team that you get into the playoffs. You never know what can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see West Carroll as a team that in years past they always seemed to struggle with the top tier teams, and now they're a team trying to make a name for themselves. And I think this is that team that wants to put the stamp on that legacy there. Some keys to success, they need to play hard into the whistle. You saw it last season where, especially against the teams that they thought that they were going to lose to, the Dakotas, the Lena Winslows, the Forstons, it almost seemed like they quit playing halfway through the game. That has got to be a mentality that gets changed now.
And that's all a mental aspect of the game. Some people say football is 90% mental, 10% physical. That's a classic example of, hey, we're playing Dakota. Well, you're playing the kids. You're not playing the name.
Right. You see that a lot where kids shut down as soon as they see the name on the jersey. Well, You can't look at the jersey. You got to look at the player up in front of you. You got to beat him off that line of scrimmage. All right, we got done with the Northwest Conference. Let's take a look at the predictions. What do you have going forward, Shane?
Well, like we said, Forreston's returning a lot of players. I have them going 9-0, running the table in the Northwest. Next, I have Lee winning 8-1. Their only loss coming to Forreston. I believe that game is at Forreston. That's a game that you can flip-flop those two teams easily, I believe. Next, we have Dakota at 7-2. There again, you don't know realistically what's going to happen. This is a team that could go 7-2, 6-3, 9-0.
Right.
I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. Then you have Galena at 6-3. What I'd like to really emphasize is these top 4 teams. If you wanted to put Galena first and Forreston fourth, I wouldn't argue with you. Out of these 4 teams, I don't care how you rank them. There's not a wrong way until we find out in week 9, as far as I feel going forward. After Galena, we have a little bit of a drop-off, but, like we talked, it's going to be important for West Carroll to get going. I have them at 5-4, enough playoff points, obviously, in the Northwest. They will be in. After that, I have Amboy at 4-5. Amboy is a team where, we've seen in the Three Rivers, but we don't know what we're going to see next year. Amboy could be a sleeper. They could easily be on the inside of the playoff run. Next, I have EPC going 2-7. Same record as last year. But it's all about those strides moving forward. Look, EPC is going to be a good team moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people think they're a year away.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe they're coming soon.
And after EPC, I also have East Dubuque going 2-7. We talked about the Warriors getting down. They got to keep fighting. After that, I have Peck going 0-9. I just don't know where they're going to get that victory.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one, too, especially with the crossover game with Stockton. Pectonic is going to have a tough road ahead, and I agree. It's going to be pretty bleak for them unless they can find some wins against an East Dubuque or an EPC or get an upset victory against a Dakota to get that tide rolling.
Right, exactly.
As far as my picks go, I agree with you. I believe that the top 4 can go in any direction. You take Forreston, Galena, Dakota, Lena, Winslow, put them in a hat, flip them out, and whoever you get's going to be at the top. But I do think that Forreston will be at that top, and I do have them also going 9-0. I think that they're going to win a very close, hard-fought ball game against Lena Winslow. Lena Winslow going 8-1. Next up, I have Dakota. Dakota's got some. They got some hunger in them. They didn't exit the playoffs the way they wanted to last year. Back-to-back losses in Week 9, and then of course the first round of the playoffs. I can see them making some noise that others may not be seeing going forward. I think they're going to go 7-2.
And it's all about that line play.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as they control the line of scrimmage both offensively and defensively, they should be able to open them up. They got a new head coach this year. They're going to be going back to a familiar offense that they've ran in past years. Getting rid of that double wing bullcrap offense, which is a big thing for them. I got Galena going 6-3. There again, Galena, Dakota, Galena. Who knows? Like you said, you could even throw Galena in at number 2, number 1. It all depends. They are down some key players. Granted, they have a lot of return key players back. You got Coach Freed over there. We've mentioned it. 28 playoff appearances last 31 seasons. Play where the gentlemen play. All right, Amboy is going 5-4. Coming out of Three Rivers Rock Conference, they were 2-7 last year, but they got a junior-dominated class coming up that went 7-2 last year as sophomores in that Three Rivers Conference. I don't know what you're going to expect out of them. They're going to bring a different type of offense that the NUIC doesn't really see that much. They're going to have a defense that only Dakota or maybe even Lena Winslow play from time to time. So 5-4 for them. I got West Carroll dropping down to 4-5. That addition with Amboy in there, that's going to be a tough game.
That's their game.
That's that game that would have propelled West Carroll had it still been South Beloit, but being that it's Amboy, I just don't see them getting over it. Maybe they will.
Circle that one on your calendar.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a must-win for West Carroll to make the playoffs there. EPC, I also have them coming at 2-7, just like you, Shane. Don't get me wrong, EPC's got players, but starting 5 to 6 sophomores, maybe even 7, that's going to be tough on EPC, especially at the varsity level in the Northwest Division against a Forreston, Alena, Winslow, Dakota, Galena, Amboy, West Carroll bringing everybody back. Granted, you got a man-child in Haverland, but I don't think it's going to be a one-man show. You got Keegan Schubert out there, and you got the Kemple boys as well, and Peyton Klaus. They're going to be good. They're definitely going to be a team that cannot be overlooked. They're going to give you a game, and you're going to have a game on your hands. But I got them going 2-7. All right, next up we have East Dubuque. I have them going 2-7 as well. I feel that they have some key players that will be coming up, areas to improve on. They could get a couple games that they get in there where they could make some noise and make some changes, an EPC, a West Carroll, maybe even an Amboy, and that could definitely throw them into the playoff picture. But at 2-7, that's where I got them in our preseason prediction here. And then last, I have Pecatonica going 0-9. They just have a tough go. They got a crossover game with Stockton. That crossover game is going to be a tough one. As we both said previous, we think Stockton's going 9-0. And then you just look down the schedule: Forreston, Lena, Winslow, Dakota, Galena, Amboy, West Carroll. They're all going to be tough games. Pecatonica is going to definitely need to come out of the gates. They got to be ready to play. They're going to have to play all 48 minutes of the game in order to make it happen.
And I think, looking at the schedule the way it is now, and we'll see how it shakes out, but looking at it now, their most winnable game is probably opening up against East Dubuque.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. And that first game could definitely set the tone, and they're taking them on at home. So we'll find out here come next Friday what happens there.